October 17th, 1977, Pinewood, Montana, St. Mary's Maternity Hospital, Monday morning. Nurse-midwife Valerie Anderson, 32 years old, walked into the Chief of Staff's office. She'd just been transferred from Billings. What she'd accidentally seen through a basement window during her night shift would turn her life upside down and expose the monstrous truth about this miraculous hospital where no infant had died in 15 years. Because the dead ones were simply replaced with living babies stolen from mothers the system deemed unsuitable. And the most terrifying discovery still lay ahead. Her own son, Alex, now 10 years old, living with her in the house next door, wasn't actually her child. Her real son had been taken the night she gave birth in 1967. And he was alive. And she would find him, even if it meant destroying the empire of lies built by Chief of Staff Dr. Zoe Ratcliffe. Pinewood was one of those small Montana towns that sprouted up in the 1950s alongside mining operations and ambitious western expansion. 20,000 residents, trailer parks mixed with modest ranch houses, the main employer, a mica processing plant, permafrost starting 3 feet underground, and winters when the thermometer hit 50 below. St. Mary's Maternity Hospital stood on the outskirts, a 2-story brick building from the post-war era painted a dull yellow. But it had a reputation. Throughout the state, from Helena to Billings, everyone knew at Pinewood's St. Mary's, babies don't die. 15 years. 15 years without a single infant death. An absolute record. In 1970s America, where infant mortality remained a concern, especially in remote regions, such statistics seemed impossible. Chief of Staff Dr. Zoe Ratcliffe had received the Governor's Medal of Excellence. The hospital became a model facility. Delegations came from Washington, D.C. Young doctors dreamed of residencies there. Valerie Anderson hadn't come willingly. She'd been transferred after a scandal in Billings where she'd publicly accused her supervisor of negligence that led to a mother's death. Her first day started with rounds. Dr. Zoe Ratcliffe met her in the office. Pushing 60, tall and thin with gray hair pulled into a tight bun, cold gray eyes behind metal-framed glasses. The metal gleamed on her chest like a warning. "Anderson." She didn't offer a greeting, just nodded toward a chair. "I know about your incident in Billings. That won't fly here. We have discipline here. Results. 15 years without a single loss. Do you understand what that means?" "I understand, Dr. Ratcliffe." Valerie looked straight into those cold eyes. "No, you don't." Ratcliffe stood. "It means each of us bears personal responsibility for every child, every single one. We have no right to make mistakes. You'll work night shifts in the postpartum unit. Senior nurse Linda Foster will brief you. And remember, no freelancing. Every decision gets cleared with me personally. Clear?" "Clear." Ratcliffe stared for another minute, scanning, evaluating reliability, then nodded. "You may go." The postpartum unit occupied the second floor. Long corridor with green walls, the smell of bleach and formula behind ward doors, newborn cries, monotonous, endless. Senior nurse Linda Foster turned out to be a plump woman around 50 with a kind, round face and soft voice. She showed Valerie the wards, the staff room, the nursery with rows of metal cribs. "We run a tight ship," Linda explained. "Feedings by schedule, 6 times daily. Babies stay in the nursery except during feeding times. Dr. Ratcliffe believes it's more hygienic. At night, a nurse and aide always staff the nursery. If anything's wrong with a baby, go immediately to Dr. Ratcliffe. She lives right here, first floor, staff quarters. And if something serious happens at night, then especially to her. She's always available. Always." Linda lowered her voice. "Dr. Ratcliffe is obsessed with these statistics. 15 years. It's her life's work. She's saved hundreds of babies, hundreds. That's why we all respect and obey her." Valerie nodded, but something pricked inside. Obsession. The word lodged like a splinter. The first night shift started at 8 p.m. Valerie relieved the day nurse in the nursery. Young aide Tanya, a girl around 20, quiet and taciturn, worked alongside her. 12 infants lay in cribs, from 1 to 5 days old. Some slept, others fidgeted, whimpering. Valerie walked the rounds, checking each baby, breathing, skin color, temperature, everything normal. Routine work she'd done 1,000 times. At midnight, they brought another one, delivery completed, boy, 7 pounds, healthy. Valerie logged him, placed him in a crib. At 2 a.m. came the check feeding. Infants taken one by one to mothers in the wards, then brought back. At 4 a.m., everything quieted. Tanya dozed in a corner chair. Valerie sat at the desk filling out paperwork. That's when she heard it. A quiet scraping sound from somewhere below. At first, she thought pipes, old building, heating system acting up. But the sound repeated, clearer now. Scraping. Then a dull thud. Valerie approached the window. It faced the courtyard, and directly below was the basement, small windows at ground level, usually dark. But now, light flickered in one of them. Dim, yellow like from a kerosene lamp. And a silhouette. Someone moved down there at 4 a.m. Valerie froze. Maintenance? But why at this hour? She watched, transfixed. The silhouette darted again, then the light went out. Silence. She waited 5 more minutes. Nothing repeated. Imagined it? No, she'd definitely seen it. When the shift ended at 8 a.m., Valerie didn't go straight home. She went downstairs and found the basement door. Massive metal door with a large lock, locked tight. A sign hung nearby. Maintenance level. Unauthorized entry prohibited. She tried the handle, wouldn't budge. Then she circled the building outside. Found those basement windows, 4 of them, all barred. Couldn't peer inside, the glass was dirty, something white pasted on the inside, maybe paper. "Valerie!" a voice called. She turned. Linda Foster stood by the entrance, wrapped in a coat. "Lose something?" "No, just walking. Tired after the night, getting some air." Linda nodded, but her look was wary. "It's cold. Let's go have some coffee." They returned inside. Over coffee in the staff room, Valerie asked casually, "What's in our basement? Storage?" "Boiler room, old equipment," Linda answered. "Why?" "Just curious. Old building, thought maybe there's something interesting." "Nothing interesting there. Dr. Ratcliffe has the key. She's the only one who goes down when there are heating problems." "I see." But Valerie wasn't satisfied. That night she was on duty again, and again at 4 a.m. heard those same sounds. And again light flickered in the basement window. This time she woke Tanya. "Do you hear that?" Tanya listened, nodded. "Pipes banging, heating." "And the light?" "What light?" Valerie pointed at the window, but the light had already gone out. "There's nothing there," Tanya yawned. "You're imagining things. You're tired. First week's always rough." Maybe she really was imagining? But on the 3rd night, Valerie decided to investigate. She waited until 4 a.m., made sure Tanya was asleep, and quietly left the nursery. Went downstairs. The basement door was there, locked. She pressed her ear to the metal. First silence, then footsteps. Clear, measured footsteps on concrete. Someone walked down there. Valerie froze, not breathing. Then heard a voice. A woman's voice, muffled but distinguishable. "2 more weeks. Can't do it earlier. They'll notice." The response was indecipherable, but male. Valerie strained, trying to hear more, but the footsteps approached the door. She darted away, hid around the corridor corner. The lock clicked. The door opened. Valerie carefully peeked out. Dr. Zoe Ratcliffe emerged from the basement. White coat, hair disheveled, holding some notebook. Behind her, a man around 40, rumpled suit, tired face. Valerie didn't know him. They conversed in low voices. Can't be any slip-ups, understand? Not one. I understand, Dr. Ratcliffe. Everything's under control. Next time, in a week, Thursday, usual time. The man nodded and quickly exited through the back door. Ratcliffe locked the basement door, turned, and froze. Valerie hadn't fully hidden. Their eyes met. Several seconds of silence, heavy as lead. Anderson. Ratcliffe's voice was ice. What are you doing here at this hour? I heard noise. Thought maybe something happened. Noise? Yes, from the basement. Like banging. Ratcliffe slowly approached. Her gray eyes behind the glasses were impenetrable. Anderson, this is an old building. Pipes bang, floors creak. You're young, nervous after the scandal in Billings. You're seeing things. Go rest. And from now on, don't wander around at night. Clear? Clear, Dr. Ratcliffe. And forget what you saw. Maintenance work is being done. None of your business. Return to the nursery. Valerie went upstairs. Her hands trembled. What was that? Maintenance at 4 a.m.? With some unknown man? And why had Ratcliffe gotten so agitated? Something here wasn't right. Very wrong. The next day at lunch, Valerie tried to get information from the other nurses. 5 sat at the cafeteria table. Her, Linda, 2 other nurses, Gail and Nina, and old aide Aunt Clara, who'd worked there since the hospital opened. Girls, Valerie began casually, is it true we haven't lost a single baby in 15 years? True, Gail nodded. State record. But how's that possible? I mean, there must be cases, pathologies, delivery complications. There are, Linda sipped her coffee. But Dr. Ratcliffe works miracles. She's a godsend. She knows what to do when everyone else has given up. Have you seen these miracles? Linda was quiet a moment. I trust Dr. Ratcliffe. She's saved many lives. Specifically, were there cases when a baby was dying and then survived? The women exchanged glances. Nina leaned closer. Listen, Valerie, what are you getting at? Saying the chief of staff is lying about the statistics? No, I just want to understand. Don't try to understand, Aunt Clara interrupted. The old woman looked at Valerie with cloudy eyes. Don't go digging where you're not wanted. This is a good place. Salary comes, bonuses too. Why dig? I'm not digging. I'm interested. Interest leads to trouble. Aunt Clara stood leaning on her cane. There was one here who got interested too. Pediatrician. Irene, her name was. 3 years ago. Asked questions, went through files. Then she quit. Or got fired. They say she left for Seattle on her own. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. What do you mean? But Aunt Clara was already shuffling toward the exit. Valerie didn't let it go. That evening, back home in her small apartment in the neighboring house, she sat at the table trying to think it through. Her son Alex did homework in the corner. 10 years old, skinny boy with dark hair and serious eyes. Quiet child, withdrawn. Valerie loved him, but sometimes caught herself with a strange feeling, like there was a wall between them, like they weren't quite related. She blamed it on the divorce, the moves, life's difficulties. But now, looking at Alex, she suddenly thought about that day 10 years ago when she'd given birth to him, right here, at St. Mary's Hospital in Pinewood. She remembered the contractions, the delivery room, the nurse shouting, "Push!" She remembered the baby's cry. Then a gap. They'd given her anesthesia. Something was wrong, bleeding. When she woke, several hours had passed. They brought her an infant wrapped in a blanket. Boy, healthy, 7.5 pounds. She looked at the wrinkled red face and thought, my son. But even then, in that very first moment, something pricked, something off. She blamed it on the postpartum state. What if... No, that's insane. Why would anyone switch babies? This is a hospital, not a spy movie. But the thought lodged like a splinter. And the more Valerie thought, the more details surfaced. She remembered being semi-conscious for almost a full day after delivery. Remembered the doctor who handled the birth wasn't local, some outsider. She'd only seen him once. Remembered Dr. Zoe Ratcliffe personally coming to a room, staring at the baby for a long time, saying something about a favorable outcome. Valerie hadn't thought much of it then, but now... "Mom, I'm going to bed," Alex interrupted her thoughts. "Go ahead, honey." She kissed the top of his head. He went to his room. Valerie sat in the kitchen, staring into the darkness outside the window. She needed to learn more, needed to find that pediatrician Irene, needed to get into the basement, needed to understand what was happening. The next evening, Valerie went to the county archives. She said she wanted to pull her medical record from 10 years ago for her personnel file. The archivist, an elderly woman in thick glasses, rummaged through the files and produced a folder. Valerie opened it, found the 1967 birth record, read carefully. Delivery with complications, bleeding, anesthesia. Infant, boy, weight 7 pounds 8 ounces, length 20 inches, APGAR score 8 out of 9. Healthy. Attending physician, Dr. Samuelson. Nurse, N. Zotova. Chief of Staff signature, Ratcliffe Z. Valerie copied all the data, then requested other records from that same month. The archivist frowned. "What for?" "Research interest. I'm helping with a study on delivery complications." "You're a nurse, not a doctor." "Helping a doctor. Please, it's important." The woman reluctantly brought more folders. Valerie quickly scanned them. In March 1967, 8 women gave birth at St. Mary's Hospital. 7 boys, 1 girl. All alive, all healthy, no pathologies. She took April data, same thing. May, identical. For all of 1967, not a single infant death. She took 1966, same. 1965, perfect statistics. Valerie leaned back in her chair. This was impossible. Even in the best New York hospitals, there were losses. Developmental pathologies, birth trauma, asphyxia, infections. That's the reality of medicine. But here? 15 years straight without a single case? Either Ratcliffe really was a medical genius or the numbers were cooked. But how? And more importantly, why? Valerie went home with a heavy feeling. Alex was already asleep. She looked in on him, watched the sleeping boy. His face in the half-light seemed foreign. The thought scared her. This was her son, her Alex. She'd raised him for 10 years. It didn't matter that there wasn't real closeness between them. Didn't matter that sometimes she caught herself thinking he didn't resemble her or her ex-husband. This was her son. Or was he? Valerie came to the next night shift with a plan. She needed to get into that basement. Ratcliffe had the key, but maybe there was a spare. She waited for Tanya to fall asleep, then went downstairs, approached the basement door, tried picking the lock. In Billings, an orderly who'd done time had taught her. She worked at it for 20 minutes. The lock wouldn't give. Then she decided on a different approach. In the morning, after her shift, she lingered, waited for Ratcliffe to leave her office. The chief of staff always left at 10 a.m. for a meeting at County Health Administration. Valerie slipped into her office. Papers lay on the desk, President Carter's portrait hung on the wall, a safe in the corner. She started searching for the key, checked desk drawers, stationery, forms, nothing. Looked up. A key ring hung on a hook by the window. Valerie took it down, sorted through. One of them was for the basement, large, old, tagged B1. She pocketed the ring and left. That same night at 4 a.m., she went to the metal door, inserted the key. The lock turned with a dull click. The door opened. The smell of dampness and something sweetly medicinal hit her nose. Valerie turned on her flashlight, brought from home. The beam picked out a concrete staircase leading down. She started descending, trying not to make noise. 15 steps. At the bottom, a corridor. Damp, cold, brick walls. She moved forward. First door on the left, boiler room. Valerie looked in. Old boiler, pipes, nothing interesting. Further down the corridor, second door, storage. Shelves with boxes, old gurneys, mattresses. Third door locked. Valerie tried other keys from the ring. One fit. She opened the door and froze. Before her was a room about 20 feet square, brightly lit by fluorescent lamps. In the middle, a medical examination table. Along the walls, cabinets with medications, instruments. On the desk, journals filled with small handwriting. Valerie approached, opened one. Date, October 15th, 1977. 2 days ago. Entry. Subject number 347. Mother, Taylor, S., 19 years old, single, prior arrest for petty theft. Infant, girl, 7 pounds, healthy. Extraction performed October 14th, 1777 at 11:30 p.m. Replacement, subject 112. Stillborn, 38 weeks, umbilical cord pathology. Mother informed of infant death during delivery. Donor material 347 transferred to Kruger family. Infertility, 8 years waiting. Socially stable, church members. Operation successful. Valerie read it 3 times. Blood pounded in her temples. She flipped through the journal. Entry after entry. Dozens of entries, hundreds. She grabbed another journal. 1976. Same thing. 1975. 1974. She opened a cabinet. Glass jars with formaldehyde stood inside. In the jars, dead infants. Valerie recoiled, almost screaming. There were about 20. Small, shriveled, eyes closed. Stillborns. Kept here. For replacement. She understood everything. The scheme was monstrous in its simplicity. Dr. Zoe Ratcliffe selected mothers in 2 categories. First, unsuitable. Single mothers, those with records, drug addicts, alcoholics, from poor neighborhoods, those the American system deemed unfit to raise children. Second, suitable. Families with good reputations, church community members, high achievers, those who'd waited years for a child but couldn't conceive. When an unsuitable mother gave birth to a healthy baby, it was taken. In its place, they put a stillborn from the stock. The mother was told, "Your baby died during delivery." The living infant went to a suitable family, who officially adopted it as a foundling or processed it through forged documents. The result? The unsuitable mother lost her child, but it was written off as tragic chance. The suitable family got their long-awaited infant, and in the hospital statistics, 0 infant deaths, because officially all deceased babies were registered as stillbirths at other hospitals across the state that supplied donor material. Perfect scheme. No traces, no questions. Dr. Zoe Ratcliffe received awards and titles, and somewhere mothers wept, told their babies had died, and somewhere families rejoiced, not knowing their adopted children were stolen. Valerie stood in the basement, gripping the wall to keep from falling. Thoughts raced through her head. How many children? How many mothers? 15 years of this nightmare. Hundreds, maybe thousands of stolen lives, and no one knew. No one suspected. Then another thought hit her, more terrible than all the rest. 1967. March. She'd given birth to Alex. She was a single mother. Her husband had left before the birth. She was unsuitable by the system's standards. And Dr. Zoe Ratcliffe had personally come to see her, stared at the baby, wrote something down. Valerie had been under anesthesia for almost a full day. Then they brought her an infant. But was it her infant? She rushed to the journals, found 1967, flipped frantically. January, February, March. There, March 18th, 1967. Subject number 89, mother, Anderson V., 22 years old, single, no husband, nurse, transfer from Billings under review. Infant, boy, 7.5 pounds, healthy. Extraction performed March 18th, 1967 at 2:20 p.m. Replacement, subject number 34, stillborn, 40 weeks, heart defect. Mother informed of healthy birth, anesthesia, unconscious 18 hours. Donor material number 89 transferred to Peterson family. Record smudged, illegible. Operation successful. Note: mother is medical professional, high risk, special monitoring required. Valerie collapsed into a chair. The world swam. Alex, whom she'd raised for 10 years, wasn't her son. Her real son, whom she'd given birth to 10 years ago, lived somewhere with another family. They'd given her a dead infant, then revived it by switching in someone else's child. She stared at the entry, trying to make out the smudged words. Who got her son? The family name was illegible, the ink blurred by time or water. She wept, quietly, hopelessly, sitting in this basement nightmare among jars of dead infants and journals of recorded crimes. Her child, her real son. 10 years. 10 years she hadn't known. 10 years he'd grown up in a strange family, calling strangers mom and dad. And she'd raised a strange boy, also stolen from some unfortunate mother. Valerie wiped her tears. Had to think. Had to act. She'd photographed these journals, but had no camera. Then she started copying. Frantically, quickly, filling sheets of paper she took from the desk. Mother's names, dates, recipient families' names, everything she could. Worked for an hour, maybe more. Filled 10 sheets. Then heard a sound upstairs. Footsteps. Someone walking down the first-floor corridor. Valerie turned off the flashlight, froze. The footsteps approached the basement door. Stopped. Silence. Then Ratcliffe's voice. "Anderson, I know you're down there. Come out." Valerie didn't answer. Her heart pounded. How did Ratcliffe know? Maybe someone saw? "Anderson, don't be stupid. Come out and we'll talk. You've misunderstood everything." Valerie stayed silent. She looked around. No other exits, only the door where Ratcliffe stood. Trap. "Fine," Ratcliffe's voice hardened. "Then I'm calling the police. You broke into a restricted area, that's a violation. You'll be fired and arrested, and Child Services will take your boy. Alex, you don't want him left alone, do you?" Alex. Valerie clenched her fists. Ratcliffe hit exactly where it hurt. "Come out, Anderson. Let's talk like adults. I'll explain everything. You'll understand. I'm not a monster. I save children." Valerie took the written sheets, tucked them inside her uniform, took a deep breath, opened the door and stepped into the corridor, climbed the stairs. Ratcliffe stood at the top. Alone. No security, no witnesses. She looked at Valerie calmly, even with a slight smile. "There we go. Let's go to my office." They went up to the second floor. In the office, Ratcliffe closed the door, gestured to a chair. Valerie sat. Ratcliffe paced the room, then stopped by the window looking into the darkness. "You read the journals?" Not a question, a statement. "You understand everything. And now you think I'm a monster, right? You steal children. I save children." Ratcliffe turned. "Anderson, you're an adult. You're a medical professional yourself. You know what kind of mothers come to us. Drug addicts, prostitutes, criminals. They have babies, and then what? Abandon them to orphanages? Or raise them in poverty, filth, abuse? These children grow up the same. Criminals, addicts, prostitutes. The cycle continues. I break that cycle. I give these children a chance. I place them in good families, families who love them, educate them, give them opportunities. These children become doctors, teachers, engineers. I save them from hell. You have no right to decide for the mothers. Mothers? Ratcliffe smirked. You've seen these mothers? They're not mothers, they're incubators. They give birth because they don't use birth control, because they're drunk, high, irresponsible. They don't care about the children. I give these children life. Real life. You kill the truth. You steal children from their mothers. Even if they're addicts, they're their children. Their blood. Blood? Ratcliffe sat across from her. Anderson, you've raised Alex for 10 years. He's not your blood.
But you love him, don't you? Gut punch. Valerie went pale. You knew? Of course. You thought I'd forgotten? You were subject number 89. Your son went to a good family, respectable people. He's 10 now. Straight A student, plays baseball. He has a mother and father who adore him. And we gave you Alex, a boy born to a woman serving time for drugs. She signed away her rights. He would have been in foster care. But I gave him to you, because you're a medical professional, because you could give him a home. And you did. 10 years. So what's the difference? Blood or love? Which matters more? Valerie couldn't speak. Her throat tightened. Everything she believed was crumbling. Where's my son? She forced out. Where is he? In a good place. Name. Give me the family's name. No. I'll go to the police. And say what? Ratcliffe leaned back in her chair. That the hospital chief of staff is switching babies? You have proof? The journals in the basement? I'll say they're your fantasies. That you're psychologically unstable after your divorce. That you broke into the basement illegally, stole keys. You'll be fired. And Child Services will take Alex. He'll end up in foster care. Is that what you want? You're a monster. I'm a realist, Ratcliffe stood. Anderson, I'm offering you a deal. You forget what you learned. Keep working, stay quiet, and I'll give you information about your son. In a year, when I'm sure you can be trusted. You'll be able to see him from a distance, know he's doing well, maybe even meet him. But only if you stay quiet. And if I refuse? Then you lose both sons, your biological one and Alex. You'll go to prison for theft of official documents and illegal entry. And Alex goes to foster care. Your choice. Valerie looked into those cold gray eyes and knew Ratcliffe wasn't bluffing. She'd really do it. She'd destroy Valerie's life without blinking. Because for Ratcliffe, this was war. War for the correct distribution of children. And in this war, there was no room for sentimentality. I'll think about it, Valerie whispered. Think fast. You have 24 hours. Tomorrow evening, give me your answer. Valerie left the office, made it home in a daze. Alex was asleep. She sat by his bed watching him. Someone else's child. A drug addict's son. But he was dear to her. 10 years she'd raised him, changed his diapers, treated his colds, taught him to read, hugged him when he was scared. He called her Mom. He loved her in his own way, awkwardly, like boys do. She couldn't betray him, couldn't give him up to foster care. But she couldn't forget her own son either. Somewhere in this town lived the boy she'd given birth to. Her blood, her flesh. He didn't know her. He was growing up thinking strangers were his parents. Did he have the right to know the truth? Valerie cried all night. By morning, she'd made her decision. She wouldn't go to the police. Not yet. First, she'd find her son, find evidence that couldn't be refuted, collect testimony from other mothers, build a case that would bury Radcliffe forever. And then, when everything was ready, she'd strike. But until that moment, she'd play a role: obedient nurse, silent executor. Radcliffe thought she'd intimidated her. Let her think that. The next evening, Valerie went to Radcliffe. I agree. I'll stay quiet. But in exchange, I want information about my son. Radcliffe nodded. Smart. I knew you'd choose reason. All right. In 6 months, I'll give you the name. But only if there are no problems, no questions, no searching. You work, stay quiet, live. Understood? Understood. 6 months. Valerie could use that time. She started small. Every night shift, when she had a free minute, she went down to the basement. Not to that room. Radcliffe had surely installed an alarm there now. But to other areas, searching for more documents. Found archive boxes in old storage. In one, lists of mothers from 1962 to 1970. Lists of subjects. Valerie copied names and addresses. Each night, a few names. Stockpiling information. During the day, she drove to addresses, found women whose children had died at St. Mary's Hospital. Talked to them. Most didn't want to remember. It was too painful. But some talked. Valerie listened to their stories. A single mother whose son died in 1965. A Native American woman who lost her daughter in 1968. A woman with a theft conviction whose baby didn't survive in 1970. They all cried. They all remembered. And they all had one detail in common. Dr. Zoe Radcliffe personally handled the delivery. In every case, there was an unforeseen situation: bleeding, anesthesia, loss of consciousness, and then notification of infant death. Valerie recorded their testimony, gathered evidence, but it wasn't enough. She needed documents, official papers that would prove the switching. The journal entries from the basement were good, but Radcliffe could destroy them any moment. She needed something else. Then Valerie remembered the man she'd seen leaving the basement that night. Who was he? She started watching. Every Thursday at 4 a.m., the same man came to the hospital through the back entrance, stayed 40 minutes, left with a folder of documents. Valerie followed him once. He walked to the county administration building. Worked there? She made inquiries through a friend in the clerk's office. The man turned out to be Peter Sazonov, head of the Vital Records Department. Everything fit. That department registered births and deaths. Through it, Radcliffe conducted her switches, registering stillbirths for unsuitable mothers and adoptions for suitable families. Sazonov was her accomplice. Valerie decided to act. She broke into the administration building at night, picked the lock on Sazonov's office, that orderly from Billings had taught her well, found a folder with documents, certificates of stillbirths and adoption papers. The names matched the entries in the basement journals. Bingo. Valerie photographed the documents. This time she'd bought a Polaroid camera with her last money, made copies, put everything back, and left. 3 months passed. Valerie assembled a dossier on 30 cases of baby switching. Mother's testimony, document copies, journal photographs. Enough to send Radcliffe and Sazonov away for 20 years. But she still didn't know where her son was. Radcliffe had promised to give her the name in 6 months. 3 months remained. Valerie could wait. But then something happened that changed everything. A young woman was brought to the hospital, Svetlana Ivanova, 20 years old, single mother, worked at the plant. First child. Radcliffe handled the delivery herself. Valerie was on duty that night. She heard Svetlana's screams from the delivery room. Then silence. Then Ratcliffe's voice. Remove the body. Tell the mother it was stillborn. Valerie burst into the delivery room. Svetlana lay on the table, unconscious. Nearby, on a tray, an infant, a girl, blue, not breathing. Stillborn? Valerie approached, picked up the girl, checked for heartbeat. It was there, weak, but there. The baby was alive. "Dr. Ratcliffe, she's alive!" Valerie shouted. "We need to resuscitate!" Ratcliffe turned. Her face was a mask. "Anderson, put the infant down and leave." "But she's alive!" "This is a stillbirth. I've pronounced death. Leave." "No!" Valerie pressed the girl to her chest. "I won't let you kill her!" Ratcliffe stepped toward her. Two nurses appeared behind, the ones in on it. "Anderson, you're defying the Chief of Staff's order. I'm telling you to put down the infant and leave the delivery room. Immediately." Valerie backed toward the door. The girl in her arms was warm, heart beating. She was alive, and Valerie couldn't hand her over to death. "No," she repeated. "I won't let you kill another baby. I'm taking her, right now. You've lost your mind, maybe, but I won't let you kill her." Valerie turned and ran, down the corridor, down the stairs to the exit. Behind her, Ratcliffe shouted. Nurses' feet pounded. Valerie burst outside. Deep night, 30 below. She ran, pressing the infant to her chest, covering her with the uniform, ran to her house 300 yards away, made it, burst into the apartment. Alex woke at the noise. "Mom? What happened?" "Later." Valerie laid the girl on the bed. "Heat water, fast!" She started resuscitation, chest compressions, mouth to mouth. The girl was blue, not breathing, but the heart beat. Beat! Valerie worked for 10 minutes, 15, 20. Alex brought warm water. She wiped the girl down, rubbed her, and suddenly, a gasp. Weak, raspy gasp. Then another. The girl breathed, opened her eyes, cried. Valerie collapsed on the floor, sobbing. She'd saved her. Saved her. But now another problem started. She'd stolen a baby from the hospital. Ratcliffe would call the police. They'd arrest her, take Alex, return the girl to Ratcliffe, who'd kill her under the guise of delayed death pronouncement. It was over. Or was it? Valerie stood, looked at Alex. "Pack. We're leaving, right now." "Where?" "Billings. I have a journalist friend there. She'll help." They packed in 10 minutes. Valerie took the dossier with evidence, money, documents, wrapped the girl in blankets. At 5 a.m. they boarded a bus to Billings. 6-hour ride. The whole way Valerie expected them to be stopped, but no. They made it. In Billings, Valerie found Larissa Ognev, a county newspaper journalist she'd known when she worked there. Larissa was one of those who wasn't afraid to write the truth. Valerie told her everything, showed her the dossier, photographs, documents. Larissa listened, paling. This is monstrous. How many children?" "Hundreds. Over 15 years. We need to publish immediately. Radcliffe has connections. She'll cover it up. She won't have time. I'm calling the state prosecutor, right now." Larissa called. 2 hours later, investigators from the Montana State Prosecutor's Office arrived. They listened to Valerie, examined the documents. One of them, an elderly detective with a tired face, said, "This case calls for a federal investigation. We're going to Pinewood, today. Anderson, you're coming with us. You'll give testimony." They arrived in Pinewood that evening, raided the hospital with a search warrant. Ratcliffe tried to resist, demanded proper procedure, called the governor. Too late. Investigators found the basement, found the journals, found the jars with dead infants. Arrested Ratcliffe and Sazonov, started interrogating the nurses. One by one they broke, gave statements. The scheme unraveled like a festering wound. A week later, the story was published in the county newspaper.
Hospital of Horrors.
How a chief of staff stole babies for 15 years. The scandal was enormous. A federal commission came from Washington. Investigations started across the state. They found other doctors involved in the scheme, found families who'd adopted stolen children. Identifications began, expert examinations, DNA tests. Valerie gave her testimony, told everything she knew, handed over the dossier. They called her a hero. But she didn't care about that. She wanted only one thing: to find her son. Investigators pulled the archives, found the record for subject number 89. The family that received her son was in Sazanov's documents. The Petersons. James Peterson, engineer, and his wife Anne, teacher, lived in Pinewood, good neighborhood, adopted a boy named Maxwell in 1967. Valerie went to their house, stood on the street looking at the windows. There behind those windows lived her son. He was 10 years old. He didn't know her. He thought the Petersons were his parents. Did she have the right to destroy his world? The investigator explained, by law, if adoption was conducted improperly, it could be annulled. The child could be returned to the biological mother, but only if the mother wanted it, and only if it was in the child's best interest. What do you want? The investigator asked. Valerie stood by the Petersons' window. Light glowed inside. She saw silhouettes. A boy sat at a table doing homework. Next to him, a woman, probably Anne, explaining something. They laughed. Ordinary family. Happy family. And in her apartment, Alex waited. The boy she'd raised for 10 years. Someone else's child, but her son. Because a son isn't just blood. A son is the one you love, the one you raise, the one you're responsible for. Valerie closed her eyes. I want to know he's okay. I want the Petersons to know the truth. But I don't want to take him. Let him stay with them. Let him be happy. The investigator nodded. Wise decision. They let Valerie meet the Petersons. They came to the prosecutor's office, frightened, bewildered, learned the truth. Anne cried. James sat with his head in his hands. We didn't know, he repeated. They told us the boy was from an orphanage. We love him. We won't give him up. I'm not asking you to, Valerie said. I just want you to know. And when he grows up, tell him the truth, that he has a biological mother who loved him, who gave birth to him, but who gave him to you so he could be happy. Anne looked at her through tears. Do you want to see him? No, not now. Maybe someday, when he's grown, he'll want to find me himself. But not now. Right now he needs you, his mom and dad. They embraced. Two mothers of one child. One gave birth, the other raised. Both loved. Valerie went home. Alex was waiting. Mom, he came to her. I heard on the radio about the hospital, about babies being switched. Was I switched too? Valerie knelt, hugged him. Yes. You're not my biological son, but you are my son, understand? You're mine, and love you. I raised you, and I'll never give you up. Alex hugged her, tight, real. For the first time in 10 years, there was no wall between them. The trial of Radcliffe and Sazonov lasted 6 months. They were found guilty of kidnapping, document forgery, abuse of position. Radcliffe got 25 years in federal prison, Sazonov 20. Several nurses involved in the scheme got probation for cooperating with investigators. Of 300 switching cases, they managed to solve 200. DNA tests were conducted. Some children returned to biological mothers. Others stayed with adoptive families, by court decision and mothers' wishes who, like Valerie, didn't want to destroy children's lives. Some children were never found.
Documents had been destroyed or families had moved to other states. Valerie stayed in Pinewood. She was reinstated, not at St. Mary's, which was shut down, but at the county hospital. She raised Alex. Sometimes she saw the Petersons with Maxwell on the street. They'd nod from a distance. Maxwell didn't know who she was, but someday he would. When he grew up, when he was ready. The girl Valerie saved that night was returned to her mother, Svetlana Ivanova. Svetlana was shocked to learn her daughter was alive. She named her Hope. Valerie became Hope's godmother. Sometimes they'd meet, have coffee, talk about life. Svetlana thanked Valerie every time. And Valerie watched Hope and thought about saving at least one life. At least one. 3 years passed. 1980. Valerie sat in the kitchen reading a letter. It came from Billings, from Larissa Ognev. Larissa wrote that the St. Mary's scandal had repercussions across the country. Investigations of maternity hospitals began. More baby-switching cases were found, not on the same scale, but still crimes. Doctors were prosecuted. Children were returned. The system was changing. Slowly, but changing. You changed the world, Val, Larissa wrote. You saved hundreds of lives. Not just the children returned to mothers, but those who won't be stolen now. Because other Ratcliffes will be afraid. Because the system became more vigilant. You're a hero. A real hero. Valerie folded the letter, looked out the window. Snow was falling. Alex played in the yard with friends. He laughed, threw snowballs. Ordinary boy. Happy boy. Somewhere in another yard Maxwell played, her biological son. She didn't know if they'd ever be close, didn't know if he'd forgive her for giving him up. But she knew one thing. She'd made the right choice. She'd chosen his happiness, not her own. And that was love. Real, maternal love. That doesn't demand, doesn't take, doesn't destroy. That lets go for the child's happiness. Valerie stood, put on her coat. Time to go to work. Evening shift at the hospital. Ordinary work, ordinary life. No heroism, no grand gestures, just life. But it was honest. And that was what mattered. Epilogue, 1995. Valerie was 50. She still worked as a nurse. Alex had grown up, finished college, become an engineer, got married, had a daughter. Valerie was a grandmother. And then one day, a young man came to her door, 28 years old, dark hair, gray eyes. He stood on the threshold looking at her. "Hello," he said. "My name is Max Peterson. You're my biological mother." Valerie couldn't speak. She just looked at him, at her son, whom she'd last seen when he was hours old. "My parents told me the truth when I turned 18, Max continued. I couldn't bring myself to come for a long time, but now I want to know. I want to know you, if that's okay." "It's okay," Valerie whispered. "Of course it's okay. Come in, please." They sat in the kitchen, drank coffee, talked, carefully, awkwardly, feeling out boundaries. Max told about his life. Valerie told about hers. They were strangers, but at the same time, family. Strange, pieced together from fragments, but family. "I'm not angry at you," Max said. "My parents explained you did it for me, so I'd be happy. I was. I grew up with love, had a good family, good life. Thank you for letting me go." Valerie cried, quietly, gratefully. "Do I have a brother?" Max asked. "Yes, Alex. He's not my biological son either, but
He's mine, like you. Want to meet him? Yes, very much.
Valerie called Alex. He came with his wife and daughter. Two brothers met, not related by blood, but related by fate. They hugged, awkwardly but sincerely. So we're both switched? Alex smirked.
Looks like it, Max smiled. Whatever. At least we have the most unusual family in town. They laughed, and in that laughter was everything. The pain of the past, the joy of the present, hope for the future. Valerie watched them, her sons, both of them, and her granddaughter, and thought about how life is a strange thing. It takes away, it gives, it breaks, it builds. But if there's love, real, selfless love, you can survive anything, can forgive, can start over. St. Mary's Hospital had long been demolished. A daycare center was built in its place. Children played where jars of dead infants once were kept. Life defeated death, as always. Dr. Zoe Ratcliffe died in prison in 1985. To the end, she never showed remorse, believed she'd done the right thing. Maybe in her twisted mind, she had. Maybe she really believed she was saving children. But the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and Ratcliffe walked that road to the end. Valerie Anderson lived a long life, made it to 80, saw grandchildren grow up, saw great-grandchildren born. She never became famous, her name wasn't in the papers, but in Pinewood, they remembered her. The woman who stopped a monster. The woman who saved hundreds of children. The woman who chose truth. And when she died in 2025, hundreds came to her funeral. Many were those very children, now adults with gray hair and wrinkled faces. Children returned to mothers, or who learned the truth and could live with it. They came to see off the woman who changed their fates. A monument stood over Valerie's grave, simple, without pretension. The inscription read, Valerie Anderson, 1945 to 2025. Nurse, mother, a person who chose love. And that was enough.